really the only people that the exchanges were able to win were investors. And investors make up far less than 1% of the world. So the only things that the exchanges have been successful in as far as customer acquisition is attracting investors. If we're going to bring Bitcoin to billions of people, you have to give them the rails to get into the space through doing something that they already do.
What's going on, everybody? Today we interview Alex Adelman, CEO and co-founder of Lolli, the ever-growing business that allows you to earn Bitcoin back on your online purchases. We discuss what it was like to launch and eventually go through an acquisition of a previous startup he founded, where Lolli's headed with features for new users, and why directly buying Bitcoin might not be the most effective way to bring Bitcoin to the masses. As always, nothing said here should be considered financial advice. Let's get it. There. Q, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I want to ask you first, how are you doing? Because you always intro the podcast, and I want to ask you, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. I don't know if you can tell. I got a little something going on congestion-wise. So if you guys hear a cough or something, I apologize. You know, keep rolling through. We'll make it.
I got you. So me and Alex are going to go ahead and carry this episode then. But as I kind of alluded to there, we do have a known company, very well-known brand in the space, and the CEO and co-founder of that brand. We have Alex Adelman from Lolli. Alex, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. So we got a jam-packed episode. You are, one of the most known companies that we've had on Layer 1. So we're happy to have you guys on. So, we love to start out with the history that you have before crypto and, as we go forward. But every interview I've seen of you kind of starts at Cosmic, your previous company. And I'd love to get before Cosmic. I'd love to get some history there. So take us through from an early age, what brought you to crypto and kind of your life there.
The simple answer is the internet. I think the internet is I know it's just such a broad thing. That internet thing's really catching on, but I think that when I was 12, my parents got a computer for the family, and I went on it. I started playing games online, and I was just fascinated with for one, just the ability to play video games online was just so cool to me. Being able to connect with people from all over the world, using Napster, Kazaa, LimeWire, and just being able to download whatever I wanted anywhere in the world from anyone, and looking up P2P technology and being where does this come from? Who's sourcing this? Why am I not having to pay for it? It just, the early internet was so raw and so cool. And it just got me absolutely hooked. And as a 12, 13-year-old, my natural inclination, I'm a builder. Whether it be Legos, whether it be Connects, whether it be robotics, early on, it was I just love building. And so if I consume something and I'm fascinated by it, I want to know how it's built. So very shortly after I started playing video games online, I started building them. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there's this program out there that was so savvy. It was called Game Maker, and it was this incredible platform. And I don't know why a more modern one doesn't exist in the same way, because there's different versions of Game Maker for Gen Z, but they just don't hit the way that Game Maker hit. It was so good. It you should look back at early screenshots of it. Someone should just recreate it, because it gave you just this open world where you could build and do whatever. So you'd be in Paint, creating these characters on 8-bit characters, and then you would import them into the Game Maker system as sprites. And then it would trick you into learning programming, because you'd be well, I want this bad guy to go shoot, fire out of his eyeballs. And then you want the good guy to have double wielding swords. And it was all this cool shit that you wanted to build. And it just gave you unlimited flexibility to build, design, and just conceptualize what you wanted this world to look like. It was kind of like Minecraft, but teaching you how to code unintentionally. So, or like you didn't know you were learning how to code. So that got me hooked in just like building on the internet. And then after that, I kind of felt like a lot of my, because Game Maker introduced so much of like art and design to the ecosystem, like you could just start with just fresh screens and build everything from the maps, the characters, the storylines, whatever. I kind of entered technology at the intersection of art and technology, which I think was important for the way that I look at technology now, and it sort of shaped my path into it from an early age. So I think I've always, for about like the first 3 or 4 years, that's what I did. And then I realized after, my friends wouldn't buy my games for more than a couple dollars, like I realized I needed to go expand into like other avenues. So I started building websites, backend platforms, and I just started like charging more and more and more. I think I quickly realized like I loved the more the product design, the logic architecture, the business side more than I love the actual like sitting down and programming for 10 hours a day. And so I would still program when I would need to, but I mean, like now it's like laughable. Like my CTO won't even let me submit a line of code, hasn't for like 8 years. I'm not a programmer, but I think, I got into it at an early age, and I knew enough to be dangerous, and I knew enough to like hire great engineers and not get ripped off. I think was like sort of what I would do from like 16 to 22. And then during college, I studied economics, and I became fascinated with microfinance and the ability for everyone in the world to be able to buy and sell everywhere. How do we enable the absolute poorest people in the world, the absolute, like the people that don't have opportunities? What does the internet give them? It gives them opportunity. It puts everybody on a level playing field, and it gives people that once would have had zero opportunity, it gives everyone opportunity to rise to the top. And I think I feel honestly guilty at times, and very lucky to have been born in the United States. We all like we were just talking about before the show, being like half Mexican. I feel that I could have been born anywhere, and growing up in an early age and going over the border and seeing some cities over the border that my family was from, and seeing how bad it could be, and being like, well, just like a mile over, if they had been just born a mile away, they would have worlds different opportunities. And so that hit me, I think, at an early age. And I think my parents did a good job of instilling that in me from an early age. And so I would say borderline obsessed with like this idea of microfinance and enabling a group of people. And I think that where I sort of like came into the path, because I was a builder, because I love building things, I never really thought, I don't love the idea of just giving people money or giving people something and like hoping that they do something from it. I believe actually in giving skills or technology or enabling somebody in some capacity. And so what I was like obsessed with this idea about is like, how do you give people the technology on top of the internet that lets them communicate with the world, that lets them sell anywhere? And that was the genesis of Cosmic. And honestly, it's like, I didn't even know about Bitcoin at the time, but if you look at like podcasts or videos or writings or anything that I was doing back like 8 years ago, like, I'm not trying to like, toot my own horn, but it's like, I'm saying the same shit. It's the same thesis. It's like the same stuff as Bitcoin. It's like, how do you give everyone in the world opportunity? How do you equal the playing field? And Bitcoin's the most incredible thing to do that since the internet. Like, it literally is the only asset that in the world that everyone in the world can own, trade, and pass around, and has long-term staying power and value. And I still don't think the world realizes that. So happy to go into any part of that, but that's the condensed version of I guess the history up until Cosmic.
Yeah, no, that was brilliant. I mean, it's almost like a butterfly effect of events that have all led you to this point and led you to Lolli, which I definitely want to get to. But before we get to Lolli and, really some of the things that it's doing to level the playing field, like you said, at Cosmic, seemed like you guys were pretty successful. You had a decent career there. How did Cosmic end? Was it a success? Did you sell it? And what kind of made you transition from Cosmic to Lolli?
Yeah, Cosmic was a crazy road. I mean, it was a success in the end, but it was a slog during it. Like the first 4 years were just like I kind of like I kind of look back and I'm like, gosh, I was insane. What was I thinking? Like it was not working. It seemingly wasn't working for like 3.5, 4 years, and then like all of a sudden everybody, I don't know if you guys remember this, it was like deep like payment tech and commerce tech, but everybody started talking about buy buttons. And we've been talking about buy buttons for 4 years. We've been talking about native commerce for 4 years. I had been preaching to every merchant. I'd been banging on doors being like, this is the future, this is the future, this is the future. And I had talked to every retailer in the US over the course of those 4 years. And so all of a sudden, like the timing, like I almost look at it as like the water parted, and like every retailer that I talked to over the last 4 years was like, oh, that's what you were talking about. Oh, you were right. And then we started to have some success. And then 6 months later, we got acquisition offers. We got like partners, new partners. And like, that's ultimately how we ended up, getting the acquisition offer, getting acquired by Pop Sugar to come and empower 1.2 billion in retail revenue. And yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things, like I kind of like when I talk to people like, Bitcoiners, Web3 engineers, people in like, I mean, Ethereum and EOS and everything, like I don't hate any project in the space. I mean, I don't like scammers, but like people who are trying to build something that like is inevitable, that will exist, like it's okay to like not like, hate on it, push back on it, be skeptical. But like, I mean, I just remember for 4 years, if that was like if Cosmic was like, something that was in the space and everybody was calling me a scammer for 4 years, and then all of a sudden it worked, it's like, all right, well, I don't know. It's one of those things where you build anything that is, I think, revolutionary, or anything that is different, and people are going to say it's crazy, or people are not going to believe in it. And everybody just has to like, believe in what you're building and know that it's an inevitable future. And a lot of like white papers I read, a lot of things, it's like, they have value. Like, I believe in the thesis. There may be 100 ways to get there, and 99 projects may fail, but I don't hate on ideas, and I don't hate on people who are trying to build a better future. And there's a lot of ambitious projects out there, and most of them are going to fail. But I see the hustle, and like I respect it.
Yeah, for those people who are kind of following along, listening and watching, Cosmic was kind of an e-payment system, correct?
Yeah, so what we technically labeled ourselves as a e-commerce gateway.
Okay.
We were the first of our kind. It was based off of this idea that even though the internet existed, even though there was all these like platforms out there, merchants were really good at selling on their own sites. Target could sell on Target, Walmart could sell on Walmart.com. All these little merchants could, at the time, Shopify was like it was in its infancy. And I don't think we even predicted how big it was actually going to be. But BigCommerce, Shopify, Volusion, all these like little like, mom and pop sort of e-commerce providers were tiny. And there was this like wild west of e-commerce. Everybody could sell on their own site, but no one could sell everywhere they wanted to. There was payment gateways out there that would let you accept payments on your own site. But what we created was what we called an e-commerce gateway. And what we did is we built these endpoints that were payments, pricing, product information, and inventory information. And so it was this like, four-part, with 4 major like real APIs that we were sort of known for, of having real-time inventory, real-time pricing, real-time payment transactions that was PCI level 1 compliant. And what we would do is we would create this layer on top of all of these merchants. So whether a merchant was on Magento, Shopify, custom-built e-commerce platform, or like Target was, like Best Buy was, we would build a layer on top of that, and those merchants could sell their products anywhere with Cosmic. So we would hook into all these publishers on one side, and then we would hook into all these retailers on the other, and this abstraction layer lived in the middle to communicate, and it was the universal API, the universal cart for the internet. So yeah, we built a really fucking cool technology. I mean, honestly, I still like, I mean, I'm biased, but it was awesome. And what we sort of accidentally stumbled upon was that we were building a buy button, and on the retailer side, everyone was on the same platform. It was like, it's kind of, it's with the thesis of Bitcoin. You could be a company like Target that does $72 billion a year in revenue, or you could be, my mom could be on Cosmic and be selling her products. And on the other end, if somebody was talking about your product in Vogue magazine or in an ad or a video on YouTube, you could be able to buy that product anywhere. So now we see this technology everywhere. We're starting to see Instagram do it, Pinterest, Houzz, like all these platforms have it native. We were that intermediary level, and honestly, like, we had success with it, but we wanted to build something so massive, and I think I didn't realize at the time, being like this like 21, 22-year-old kid, how long it takes to build anything great. And we scratched the surface on, I think, what the industry looks like now. And we probably exited early, to be honest. But I think it was a win for everybody, and we're excited to move on. And honestly, like, Lolli, I think, is way bigger and way more important of a company than Cosmic is or was. So I think it came at really good timing. And additionally, one of the things in hindsight that we had we couldn't have predicted is, after we got acquired by Pop Sugar, we ended up getting acquired again by Ebates, the biggest cashback company in the US and many parts of the world. And part of that is super serendipitous, because I had full control over the acquisition of Pop Sugar, and it was a really good fit. We got to expand our technology to more merchants. We got to grow like 10x post acquisition. I learned a ton from Brian, the CEO that bought us. But really, like, the Ebates acquisition was probably the most impactful and influential to Lolli, because we're built on top of a cashback model. And Ebates opened me up to like 10 times as many merchants. Like, I got to go to all these merchants and make them I'll just say a shitload of money, win their trust, and build a technology that I had been preaching for many years, for it to be validated, and I could win the trust of a lot of these top merchants that are our partners today. So after we parted ways with Ebates, we really thought hard about what we wanted to do. And my opinion, and my thought, and my team's thought, Matt, my co-founder, and much of our team, that's the same team as our last company, a lot of our thesis was that we thought that the biggest problem with crypto is, like, how do we bring it to the masses? It's a distribution issue. And we saw the customers at Ebates, we saw how rabid they were. They love their big fat check. And this is like a 40-year-old mom on her computer in her basement, like, shopping on Ebates, getting her big fat check every month or every quarter, really. And she's just pumped. And she would send in these unsolicited videos, and we would watch them at all hands. And I was like, I don't know any more rabid customers other than Bitcoiners. And so I was like, we've got Bitcoiners, we've been part of the community for 4 or 5 years. We've got Bitcoiners on one end, and we've got your cashback, people on the other end. And I was like, these are these two perfect, overlapping segments that both like love these two things. And like, what if we brought them together and made it easier for people to get Bitcoin, expand merchant adoption where the Bitcoin payment rails failed in the past, and make Bitcoin accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I love it. That's an awesome story, and thanks for really kind of breaking that down for everybody. I don't think people often get that and get that detail, but it's cool to see the transition and the passion and all of that. So before we move on, just in case people haven't heard of Lolli, I'm sure there's maybe one person out there that hasn't. Can you break down how that system works? How would somebody today kind of go and sign up for Lolli and start to basically earn Bitcoin back?
Yeah, and if you haven't heard of Lolli, kind of to start with it, Lolli is a Bitcoin rewards company. We make it incredibly easy to earn Bitcoin when you shop online at over 750 merchants. So yeah, how it works is we partner with merchants, and those merchants pay us when our users shop their sites. So they, let's just say a Lolli user goes and shops at, or books travel at booking.com, or shops at Ace Hardware. They get like Ace Hardware or booking.com pays us for every sale. So we have rates that our average, our rate is around 7%. It goes upwards of 30% back. So you can earn a lot of money back from these merchants, way more than credit card points, because it's so targeted, and like the merchants are being incentivized, or sorry, our users are being incentivized to shop with these merchants. So yeah, the merchants pay us, and then we convert that to Bitcoin and send Bitcoin to your Lolli wallet. You don't have to do any KYC on the front end. It's just you sign up, you download it on Chrome or Firefox, and you just start earning. It's super passive. You don't have to worry about it's a custodial service, so you don't have to worry about maintaining your keys. And for the people that do care about that, which everyone should care about that eventually, but you can transfer it to any wallet, address, exchange that you want. And for people who are new to Bitcoin, which I think is arguably the most important thing for adoption, those people can hold Bitcoin securely with Lolli.
Interesting. So, one thing I want to touch on is we always wait till 20 minutes into the episode to actually talk about the product that we have you on to interview about, which is cool. And you know what, for those of you listening at home, I'll drop a link in the description where we finally start talking about Lolli. But anyways, a lot of the, individuals that we have on this podcast are really trying to figure out product market fit. They're trying to gain a user base. They're trying to gain this community. It seems like you guys already have it. And for those people who maybe don't know the user statistics behind Lolli and the success you've had up to this point, can you break that down and kind of just boast a little bit, pat yourself on the back, but let us know how many people are using Lolli today?
Cool. And yeah, I'll boast on my team. For one, it's the same team as our last company. They're incredible. Like I think it's tough because I get I'm doing a lot of these interviews and everything, and I get a lot of the credit. But honestly, our team's incredible. We've been building together, some of us for 7-8 years now, yeah, I think it says a lot for like a lot of our team to want to go into this again. Like building Cosmic was a slog, and going at it and doing this whole thing again is props to them for wanting to build the future that we all want to live in. To answer your question, I think that the way that we sort of started is largely inspired by a lot of the things that I've seen just across the internet in general. I didn't really see a lot of communities, like tight-knit communities, and sort of like like Bitcoin has it, Ethereum has it to a certain extent, but a lot of the individual products, I hadn't really seen someone really build like a community around something that was enabling the end goal that everybody wants, which is like mass crypto adoption or mass Bitcoin adoption, and let the best coin win. But like I think that I'm the longest believer in Bitcoin personally. I think it's already proven its value to society, and so we chose to focus around Bitcoin. I think that was a tough decision because while I believe personally in Bitcoin the most, I also believe in a free market, and I believe people should be able to get and earn whatever they want. One of my frustrations with the space is like sending my mom or sister or dad or friends to any of the exchanges as a first-time user in 2017, 2018. It would be so horribly confusing to somebody coming into an exchange and not knowing anything about cryptocurrency, and then taking your hard-earned money, buying cryptocurrency, not knowing which one to buy, what the story was behind it. And so a lot of it came down to everything that I had learned from Cosmic, and the things that we had failed with, the things we had succeeded at. And ultimately, one of my biggest learnings is like you have to focus on one thing and be the best at it. And so I think like one of the things we chose to focus on early is instead of doing every coin and every currency out there, we chose to do Bitcoin. And it, I think, is a huge part of our success is because we chose to really focus and build that community around Bitcoin. And I think it's important for a number of reasons. One, I can 100% promote something I believe in. I never wanted to run the risk of shilling something that I think fails in a year, or giving someone something that I thought had value, and then it just like turns out to be a scam. I didn't want to be the arbiter of that information or that currency. And I think Bitcoin has already proven its value to society. It's here for the long term. It's not going anywhere. And so I feel like I can with 100% confidence do that. Also, Bitcoin has an incredible community. The third piece is that it's the simplest thing to understand. One of the things I did early on that I think a lot of people don't do, which is so surprising to me, is taking the product approach of like asking your customers. Before we even launched, I went to the Midwest. I went to North Carolina, where I'm from. I went to Brooklyn. I went all over the US, and I asked people, what do you think about Bitcoin? What do you think about Ethereum? What do you think about Ripple? What do you think about all these things? No one knew what Ethereum was. No one knew what Ripple was. It's like, yeah, if you're on crypto Twitter, you are inundated with like all these different communities. Everyone's fighting. It's all like chaos. When you actually go into the real world, nobody fucking knows about any of these coins. Everything's super confusing. Bitcoin is the only thing people know, and people either have a positive response to it or a negative response. And some people have a mixed response, and the mixed response people are really the market. It's somebody who has learned about Bitcoin or thinks they know something about Bitcoin or is curious about Bitcoin, but they don't know what it is. And the verdict's still out. And that percent of the population is massive. Like the only people that the exchanges were able to win were investors. And investors make up far less than 1% of the world. So the only things that the exchanges have been successful in as far as customer acquisition is attracting investors. If we're going to bring Bitcoin to billions of people, you have to give them the rails to get into the space through doing something that they already do. And most of the world's not investors, but what does most of the world do? What does most of the world do? They shop. So like we took something that everybody does, shop, buys stuff online, books travel, and we open that market up. And I think that's where we're seeing some success.
Yeah, I think I can speak for everyone here when I say that thank God the XRP army isn't any bigger than it already is. Nobody wants to deal with those guys. But one of the things that I really am interested in is how many users actually keep Bitcoin on your platform, or just within your wallet on Lolli, because that kind of indicates to me that they might be a new user, right? Like if you have a ton of people that keep Bitcoin on Lolli, maybe they don't even have another Bitcoin wallet. So within the community that uses Lolli, what's the percentage that actually like doesn't transfer Bitcoin out of this wallet?
That's a great question. I actually haven't been asked that, but it's the exact percent I'd have to look up, but it's well over 90%, if not 95%, keep their Bitcoin on Lolli. And I think that's important because like I think you're right. The hardcore Bitcoiners, Bitcoin maximalists, that they'll move it after they've hit like around $50 to $100 in Bitcoin. I think like if you don't trust us with like $50, it's like come on guys, like but I understand like our threshold's $15. Once you've earned $15, you can transfer it out, and that just helps us with like fraud management, and it lets people like accumulate Bitcoin, earn. But yeah, I would say well over like 90%, and I'm pretty sure over 95%. Yeah, keep it on Lolli, and I think we're pretty proud of that. So yeah, we have a lot of wallets across a lot. Like I would say the most interesting thing about Lolli that a lot of people don't talk about is that we've created the most active wallet in the world. Like a lot of people look at wallets as being a lot of wallets right now are investment banks, basically. Like they are savings accounts. You're holding your money there. You don't touch it because, hodl, and you're just keeping it there. And you typically don't move it around unless you're doing coin joins or unless you're like paying for stuff. But such a small percentage of people actually pay for things with Bitcoin or want to pay for things with Bitcoin or crypto in general. So I would say, like, because it's rewards and because people are earning, once a week, a few times a month, I think it's the most active Bitcoin wallet in the world. And that gets really exciting. And I think that if you sort of go into the user psychology around it, like, we're trying to make Bitcoin and crypto in general a part of everyone's life, everyday life. The only way you do that is you don't do that through investments, because if I invest in something, I may like look at it every, once a month, a few times a week when it pops up on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. If I, similar to like if I'm holding Apple stock, I don't think about Apple stock every day, even though I have an Apple phone. Like, it's more about the technology around the actual, like, the thing that you're using. If every day you swipe your card, if every day you're like, getting your coffee, going in and taking a Lyft or getting an Uber or whatever, and you're earning Bitcoin, every day you are thinking about the cash you spent, the Bitcoin you earned, and what that Bitcoin does over time. It's an opportunity for us to put cash on, like, juxtaposed with Bitcoin. And I think it's almost inevitable. This is not investment advice, and I will never say buy Bitcoin. I think that's, do your own research. I always say, earn Bitcoin. It's the easiest way to get involved. But it's like, if you can see Bitcoin juxtaposed with cash and Bitcoin continues to go up over time as it has historically, you're going to look at Bitcoin as a better money, as a better reward system, and a better savings technology, which is where it's at right now. Over time, you're going to start to value that Bitcoin over way more than you're valuing the cash. And you're going to want to use Lolli for every purchase. As we go down this funnel, we go down the stack, we bring on more merchants, and we give people the ability to start to pay with Bitcoin or pay with the pervasive cryptocurrency that is better than Bitcoin in the future.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that was really going to be my next question. I mean, you hit on it perfectly, right? Before, when we were talking about exchanges, and now with this question with investment, right? The onboarding process has typically been through investment or speculation, and it's confusing. So obviously, if you're almost in a way giving somebody something for free, right? They have to purchase a good they would normally purchase and then receive the Bitcoin. That adoption method or avenue is a lot simpler. So as you guys look to the future, do you foresee onboarding other kind of user abilities, right? I know fixed income or this kind of lending, borrowing, ecosystem has really emerged in crypto. Are you guys looking at that? And if not, what else are you looking at for users?
Absolutely. I think that it's part of the future banks, which I think Bitcoin is the bank of the future, but like what a bank looks like in the future is people having control of their data, control of their money, and having that in one place is extremely important. And having full control of it and being able to opt in, opt out. I look at it as like, as a user, I want to be able to opt in to any amount of risk or reward that my money can have. And what a lot of people, don't realize is, like, your bank is making so much fucking money off of you, and you get a tiny portion of that. And really, it's because they are so expensive to operate. Like, think of every bank branch, every, of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of employees that banks, employ. And it is a hyper inefficient organization. And those people could be doing a million other tasks, a million other jobs that would be way more efficient. Crypto, Bitcoin, has come out and basically made banking for the self-sovereign individual way easier and way more efficient. And it removes the need for, a massive clunky organization. So I really think that what the banks of the future, Lolli being, it looking like a bank of the future, it gives people the ability to do all the functions of a bank. And instead of the bank making all the money off of the, the assets under management, the individual should make the money off the assets under management, and the bank should actually do what the original purpose of the bank is, and that's serve the individual. So if the individual is making, like if the bank was previously making money, in the future the individual should be making the money, and everything drives to zero. So understandably, Lolli will make a lot less money than Wells Fargo and Chase and everything, because we'll pass those savings back off to the user. Thus, we'll have more users, and we can actually make enough money to build a sustainable business. But we can run a modern banking system with a few hundred people, not a few 100,000 people, and pass those savings back to the individual, and make hyper efficient markets, and ultimately do what I've always wanted to do in the world, which is like enable commerce everywhere, give people the ability to buy and sell anywhere, connect the world through commerce, and create hyper efficient markets that are run through technology.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it there, but we have Australian people listening to this. We've got German people listening to this. A lot of UK citizens, Canada citizens. Everyone's rushing to their phone right now, I'm sure, or their browser, and wanting to download Lolli, and they're not able to obviously use y'all's service. So how do you guys go about expanding to these other jurisdictions, to these other countries, and do you have a roadmap for that?
Absolutely, yeah. To all of our international, followers, and because like half of our Twitter audience can't even use Lolli right now, and I get a lot of when Europe, when Australia, when Thailand, there's a lot of demand for what we're building, and we're coming. I have a belief with product that I want to do things right. If I go and I expand for one, I think there's a lot of people that do not understand the idea that startups do not scale internationally in the first 5 years, no matter what industry you're in. And if you do, you run the risk of pissing off a bunch of users, having a awful experience. And if we go expand internationally and fail because we've extended ourselves, we've spread ourselves too thin, then we have done a disservice to the community as a whole. And if I go expand to Thailand, in next month, and I'm not able to offer the same service that I am in the U.S., the people that are requesting in Thailand right now for Lolli are not going to be happy. Maybe they earned $10 in Bitcoin, but if that was a shitty experience, or they're not maybe we're not able to scale efficiently there, then it's not going to work.
Yeah,
so,
it's an interesting principle, because crypto kind of comes from this idea that we're going to democratize finance to the entire world. So it's an interesting principle that you have this kind of technology that's connecting and is able to connect people in the US to people in China, and then you're still talking about us being kind of limited to scaling within one country. I think those two ideas kind of run opposite of each other. It's an interesting kind of relationship.
It is. It's something. I mean, if I could snap my fingers and have Lolli be international, if I aim to be Bitcoin, right? I want to. I with the ethos of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's everywhere. Bitcoin has also been around for 11 years now. So we've been around for 1.5 years. So I think that it's very difficult to build a company that scales. And that's what makes Bitcoin so amazing. It is something I've never seen before. One of the limitations of our business, and the things that I think people will see in the next 3 to 5 years, this really play out. I said earlier, one of the more interesting things about our business is that we've created the most active Bitcoin wallet in the world. I think that one of the other interesting parts of our business is that I think we're the only company that has true merchant adoption. Fortune 1,000 merchants are using Bitcoin with rewards. That is, I don't think people realize. I'm not trying to toot our own horn. I'm more bragging on my team, and excited for our this company. But it's merchant adoption is so important. Trillions of dollars are moved just from merchants across the world and between consumers and merchants. If we can if we can get merchants all over the world on board, and we can use the US as a launching ground, as like the center of commerce, the biggest, the biggest economy in the world, or consumer economy in the world, if we can show that this model works, and then I can go to Thailand with this model, I can go to Japan with this model, Australia, Canada, Europe, South America, Africa, all these different parts of the world with this model, and all these merchants on our back and these case studies, we're going to be way more successful. We're going to have way more merchant adoption and consumer adoption in the long term. So that's what we're doing right now. We're building up these case studies. We're building up these merchant partnerships. And a lot of our merchants are international. A lot of people don't realize this, and I haven't really been that outspoken about it, but a lot of our partnerships, we're selling them internationally from day one. I'm saying, let us prove out this in the US. Let me go drive you millions of dollars in sales. And then I want to go expand to the 100 other countries that you're there. If you look at our merchant list, a lot of our merchants are international. So part of our agreement is the fact of like, let's prove this out in the US as a test market. We're now starting to build these case studies and actually have real, like, significant sales that we can then go take these case studies and expand. So that's what we're doing right now. More than likely, Canada is going to be our first test market this year. And then we're going to expand internationally from there. And yeah, part of building for Canada is part of building for the whole world. We're building, templatized localization is the way we call it internally. We don't want to just expand to Canada as like, a copy and paste. Expanding to Canada means building that template that we can turn that on in the same model with partnerships, with localization, with languages, expand that to different parts of the world. And I think people will see it all play out in time. And also, like, the other thing to think about is sort of like the Amazon approach of make money in one place and then have leverage in other places. So if we can make money from US merchants, and then we can actually give people more money elsewhere and scale and say like, hey, like we're making you all this money in the US, let's go launch, like we're happy to go launch in this country for free as a test market, and then we're able to subsidize that with our US market. That's net good, and it lets us drive costs down to zero, run more efficiently, and build an international company that has the ethos of Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously taking that data as well and being able to say, hey, this, say maybe small or medium or big retailer in the US has, made all of this money. We've brought them all of this business, look at what it could do for you is obviously super powerful as well. I wanted to touch back on one thing that I think is an important metaphor, back from your time at Cosmic to perhaps the crypto market or just blockchain in general right now. You talked about that buy button, right? As this thing that everybody was kind of moving towards. Obviously the endpoints and, really the bridge that you all were at Cosmic was super important for the way that e-commerce was done, just in general. So other than Bitcoin, being earned versus purchased, is there anything else that you see needed in the space right now? Some sort of buy button, right? What is that kind of next bridge that you guys are looking at, or maybe another company in the space is looking at, that you think will really drive that global adoption?
I love what Lightning's doing right now. I think it's an incredibly important layer 2 solution on top of Bitcoin. I think like Liquid is also interesting, in what they're doing. I think Lightning will probably be one of the most important projects in the space over the long term. And I think companies, organizations that are like Lightning, that are driving, that are building on top of Bitcoin, I think are really, really important right now. I think stable coins I'm incredibly long on stable coins. I believe that we are going to have to have stable coins in this world. And actually stable coins are amazing because it kind of creates a parity of fiat currency. It's like we're literally making a virtual currency on top of your fiat currency and just being like, money is whatever, like money is just this meme. It's like hilarious. I think it's so funny. It's like, like stable coins are just like, I'm just fascinated by them. I think if they're like brilliant and hilarious at the same time. And I think it's like the more people that use stable coins and it just makes people, once you learn about stable coins, you're like, wait a second, there's a computer program that is saying, that is like pegged, that is just like, it's not backed by anything. It's not like same as, most fiat currencies. It's just on top of a fiat currency, and I'm just moving it around. But where's the value, and how is that? How like, what does that even do, and how does that even work? And it leads the world to truth, and I think ultimately it leads to Bitcoin. And I think stable coins are the best thing that the world can have to teach people about Bitcoin, to teach people about sound money, and to have sort of this like reserve currency that everybody can sort of strive to own, which is Bitcoin. So incredibly, like, I'm paying a lot of attention right now to stable coins. I still don't think over the next 10 years that we really want to, like, the world wants to pay with Bitcoin. And the reason is such. I think that if you look at like the macro, if you zoom out and you look at like the macroeconomic picture of the world right now, Bitcoin is the 45th, last I checked, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 45th most stable currency in the world. The only way that I actually think that I would use Bitcoin as a means, as a medium of exchange, is if my native currency, if my fiat currency is currency 45 to 200. The only reason I would ever transact with it rationally, if I'm in country 45 to 1, or if I'm in the US, I have absolute no reason to spend Bitcoin other than altruistically to promote the network. And most people do not operate on that. Most people are looking out for their wallet. They're looking out for their pocket. They're looking out for their bank account. And I have no reason to spend Bitcoin. Lightning is incredibly important for those people who have fiat currencies, who rely on fiat currencies from 45 and on. And those currencies are fucked. Like, those currencies are the ones that, like, I actually am like long US dollar. I'm long, Chinese yen. And not because I those currencies, like, there will only be, over the next like 20 years, there's going to be this extreme consolidation of currencies, because even if you zoom even further out, look at every country, everybody wants the US dollar. Everybody wants the Chinese yen. They want to hold a reserve currency. If there's a better currency out there that over time, which is Bitcoin, that they can hold, like, everybody wants gold. Like, they want something to stabilize their own currency. It is the more that Bitcoin convinces people that it is digital gold, that there is a better reserve store of value to help stop hyperinflation, to help stop inflation in general, that's going to be more pervasive. So, sorry.
No.
Keep going. Yeah.
No, I love where we're at right now. This is oftentimes the conversations we have on our live version of our show, our weekly news version, and we go down rabbit holes like this. And I think what you're kind of getting at is that it comes down to education, right? And this is why I love Lolli, because in the US, it's super hard to explain Bitcoin to a noob, right? Like a newbie, because and I use the term a lot. It's hard to explain the importance of freedom to somebody that has it already. But you guys are approaching it from the opposite way. It's not coming in on your white horse like a lot of us do to your aunt and be like, this is the importance of Bitcoin. It's more just like getting the foot in the door. Hey, you can actually earn money, and by the way, earn Bitcoin. And once they have it, then it's like the foot in the door. Okay, what is Bitcoin? Okay, how do I do this? And then it gets them to all the questions you're asking. But I did have one question. I know that was a long statement, but it's kind of swept under the rug a little bit, because crypto in general, the user base is mainly male. But in your interviews, you were actually saying that almost 30% of your user base is female, and so I kind of wanted you to break that down. And also, how do we get more females because that's half the population of the entire world. How do we get them involved in crypto?
Yeah, so right now we're about 30% of our user base is female, and we don't collect data on gender demographics. But what we can tell from qualitative from surveys, qualitative information from customer support. We estimate, and Twitter data and that kind of thing. We estimate around 30% of our audience, of our user base, is female. I think that's something I'm personally like. It's one of those things. Is like you can have all of these ideas and want sort of these data points, but you don't actually know until you launch it. And at the end of the day, like we're optimizing for people to actually earn more Bitcoin through shopping. So it's not like something I'm like targeting females out there. It's just like we built a product and 30% of our user base is female, and that is net good for the world. That's net good for crypto, because the last stat that I saw was that less than 4% of crypto users are female. And so if we are 5-6x xing that actual demographic and bringing more people into Bitcoin, we're expanding the market, we're educating more people on it, and I think that's incredibly important to the world. Like I think that my goal would be to get it up to 50%. Women, I think, make up. I heard one stat one time. It was like 88% of all purchasing decisions. That probably leads itself to we are a spending and earning platform, and a lot of the demographics data that I remember from Ebates and from looking at indirect competitors like Honey, a lot of their shoppers are female. Like the vast majority of their shoppers, their users are female. So we should be trending upwards over time, and that should be part of our goal, is to expand the reach of Lolli and give Bitcoin to more people.
Yeah, for sure. And they're generally the smarter ones, right? At least that's what my wife would definitely say about me. We're Q and I are out here kind of degenerately buying Bitcoin as often as we can, and they're earning it right for free. The best way to do it. So
there's one point on that I want to make that you just brought up and reminded me of, is like we kind of like joke around like the traders on like YouTube that are like doing all of this like analysis of like where Bitcoin's trending, like the candlesticks and all that fun stuff. Like if you interviewed, like when I was at Ebates, we would interview a lot of users and we'd see a lot of people write in. If you saw some of these people's like personal like Excel sheets or databases of like where they were earning, or in our case where they're stacking sats, like it looks like TA traders. Like these people are like trying to like being like, I'm gonna buy toilet paper from here, I'm gonna get my travel from here. Like they're stacking as many like sats as they possibly can, and the rewards market is like it's like a new trader. Like somebody is trying to stack as many sats as possible, and it sort of like the Bitcoin ethos. And like if I'm gonna spend money, if I'm gonna spend money, I want to, like, I could go buy Bitcoin or I could go earn Bitcoin. I want to earn as much Bitcoin as possible. Thus, I'm going to look at Lolli's like 750 partners, and I'm going to try to find out where I can stack the most sats. So we have like, honestly, we have like so many people that will write in and they'll email support, and we've built up a great support team to support this. And they'll be like, I have a trip to Mexico planned, and it's like I want to book travel for here. I have a flight, and so we're like, our best travel or flight partner is Cheapo Air or Priceline right now. If you're going to book a hotel, we recommend Booking.com. If you want to do have a home share, we recommend Verbo. Like we help you try to like stack the most sats and like compare all these prices and stuff. And so like honestly, like I think because mostly women are doing that, they're controlling the purchases at homes, they're way savvier on rewards than most men are. Like, and so I just want to put that out there, like, vast generalization, but our female users are way savvier with rewards overwhelmingly than a lot of the male shoppers.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fascinating and pretty killer that you guys have been able to kind of pull that out from your users and hear that from them. I mean, it sounds like they're pretty happy with Lolli thus far. So as we kind of finish up here, I know you have to go. I want to hit you with some kind of quick fire yes or no questions here. So 3 of those, and then a final one that we generally ask people before we obviously get all of the kind of URLs and contact info. So 3 of those, and then the final one. The first question is, do you think in 2020 Bitcoin will hit an all-time high? Yes or no?
I don't think I've ever made price predictions, so I don't want to start doing that.
Okay.
I had a tweet today that price is a great indicator of adoption, and Bitcoin is, I think, the future we all want to live in. It's a glimpse of the future we all want to live in, and price is a good indicator of how close we are to that future that we all want to live in. I actually personally don't look at Bitcoin as an investment. I look at it as I'm in it for the principles. That's just me.
Sure.
I want to live in a world where we're all connected through the same money. We're all connected through commerce. The higher the price goes, that's typically an indicator that more people are using Bitcoin and have adopted Bitcoin.
Right.
So if we are successful in bringing Bitcoin to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in 2020, I hope that like we can get Bitcoin up to 20K. I hope that would be our goal. Like there's so many companies coming into the space that are doing so many cool things, and I hope that they can drive Bitcoin to 20K. But honestly, I think the best advice I can give is like get into Bitcoin for the principles, read the white papers, the white paper, and like learn about Bitcoin. And like the more you do that, the more you teach people, the more you send Lolli to more people. Like the closer, the higher the price will go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no worries. We'll skip to the final one here. This is one we ask every guest. Is there a book that you've read recently or in the past at any point that you recommend to our viewers and listeners?
I mean, the one I always send to our like merchants and like people that are our new partners. I always send Bitcoin Standard. If you haven't read it, I think it's great. More like I think it has done more for enabling people to talk about money and understand money than it even does for Bitcoin. Like there's so many resources out online that teach people about Bitcoin, but I think it articulates, the whole first half of it articulates the history and of money and what money is. And one of my biggest gripes with the space and honestly like the world is the world doesn't understand what money is. Like it's something we all use every day. Our own form of money. And if everybody understood what money is, I think everybody would use Bitcoin, personally. And so I always say, the Bitcoin Standard is great. I think there's so many good books out there, and like non-Bitcoin related books that help people see the world. Three-Body Problem for some reason comes to mind, just because I think it's really cool for a number of reasons. I love sci-fi. I love like things that they give me glimpses of the future. One of the reasons I love it is because it actually takes Eastern schools of thought and it sort of communicates that to the Western world, and it bridges two parts of the world through communication. So I love Three-Body Problem because it's the first book that helped me see culturally how China views the world, the same world that we're living in. But it views the world through the future. And it's like, if you look at how they view the world, it's so different than how we look at the world through the Western viewpoint, and it helps bridge that. And I think books that are like that are incredibly important. One thing I'm more into right now, and today I'm not reading anything specifically. I'm listening to a lot of Alan Watts. Alan Watts always inspires me. I think he helps me, keep the sort of zen and long-term viewpoint of the world. I strongly encourage everyone to listen or read to Alan Watts. And then right now, I mean, one of my favorite podcasts that is not crypto related is The Portal by Eric Weinstein. I think it's challenging a lot of my beliefs about the world, not just crypto, and it's helping me shape or sort of like taking devil's advocate and arguing my own preconceived notions about the world and questioning everything, which I think is really good. And if you couple that with sort of the Zen mentality of being like, question everything, but also have peace in areas in which you can like look at the world and find peace in where you're at in the present, and zoom out and zoom in constantly, I think has created peace for me. And it also has helped me build what I think is the future.
Yeah, it sounds like you're studying Stoic philosophy there, and I don't know much about Eric, but I do follow Alan Watson. He definitely has some gravitas to his voice. One question, real quick. This is kind of just for me. I don't know how many people find this interesting, but you touch on like 500, or I don't know how many different partners you guys have with big, huge retailers, right? Can you, in a short amount of time possible, because we are running up to the end of the episode, can you give me a story where you approached a retailer and it was just a ridiculous like response? Like they were like, what the hell is Bitcoin? Or maybe they just like didn't respond how you thought they were. Is there something you could give us there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I wish I had more of those stories. Like if you think about one of the things I always challenge everyone to do is like think about what everyone's optimizing for. Most of these merchants are optimizing for more sales, so we're totally aligned. To be honest, I would say most of our merchants, like they care about Bitcoin in a very different way than I think we realize. They
Okay.
care about they care about Bitcoin because Bitcoin's driving them sales through Lolli. They
Mm.
don't care about Bitcoin as far as sound money. They don't
Yeah, they're
care.
not touching it.
They don't touch it. We take on all the risk.
Mhm.
So Lolli is like a business model innovation in the way that we're getting people to care about Bitcoin. So when I say like now, a lot of our merchants that we've driven a shitload of revenue for, um, they are they are now asking questions that they weren't asking before. Now they're saying like, now we're speaking at all these retailer events and we're saying, look, we've driven like millions of dollars of sales for some of these partners, and then everyone's like, wait a second, I want to drive millions of sales. How do I do that? And so then they're starting to care. They're starting to ask questions about Bitcoin, ask questions about sound money. That's the long game. Like that's the zoom out approach, is being like, how do you get everyone in the world to care about Bitcoin? You have to appease to what they're optimizing for. And what ultimately they're optimizing for is sales. So like the other day I sent Sam's Club the Bitcoin standard because like they were asking a lot of questions. And I was like, I don't have all the answers. I don't want to I don't want to preach. I don't want you to just believe me. Believe all this, like go read these books and go read the Bitcoin white paper. I send the Bitcoin white paper once a week now, to our partners so that they understand what they're a part of. So I just believe that like we're not, if I went and I was like a Jehovah's Witness and I went door to door doing the same game that I played with Cosmic, where I was like, this is the future, this is the future, this is the future. Then I would wind up 4 years later with next to no adoption and waiting for somebody else to go, lead the innovation.
Mm.
I'm launching day one with 500 partners and now, a year and a half in with 980 partners. And I'm saying we are already driving value to these partners. Now, like we can sort of slowly convince them of why Bitcoin's so important, why crypto is so important to them over time when they're ready. I don't want to wait. I'm like, we're going to go add value. We're going to go change the world. And then if people want to pay attention to how that's being, if they want to ask questions and we can reward their curiosity and they can lean into it and give us higher rates or distribute us to more partners, like that's going to be net good for the world.
That's awesome, man. Well, congrats on all the success you guys have had thus far. Obviously, you're very passionate about this. I'm sure the team's very passionate about this. And it sounds like there's some fun things coming for Lolli users down the road. We're going to let you go. I know you've got to run to your next meeting here, but for those who want to take a look at Lolli, follow you guys on Twitter, whatever the case may be, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so it's lolli.com, LOLLI.com. And then, as I think we've mentioned a few times in the episode, we're super active on Twitter. Our community is amazing there. Like, we're everything from memes to education to, giveaways. We give out a lot of free Bitcoin. It is the ethos of our brand. Give people free Bitcoin, let people earn in an easy way. So doing lots of like competitions there. And I think we have, some of the best memes in the space, but I'm biased. That's Try Lolli, at Try Lolli. And then, we're on clear Facebook and Telegram and all these other channels as well. You can find us. And Instagram, we just started to really build out that as well. We just started a meme review every Monday. If you are more for the curated approach and you're not into crypto or Bitcoin Twitter, you can go to Lolli and we curate all the best memes from Twitter for you. And that's at Lolli app.
Awesome, man. Well, that's I'm definitely going to check out that meme piece. That sounds like a lot of fun. But thanks again for coming on the Layer 1 podcast. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thanks, Alex.